thought I was going to try to do it on YouTube. I really don't know.
Yes, it says now streaming on Facebook.
Oh, thank you. See, I think most of my meetings have been more informal, just getting used to the technology. Uh, oh, oh, look, there we are on Facebook. Okay, then I think I can put it in the group. Okay. See, I feel like I'm doing something, but I might not be. In theater, if you're doing it or not. You know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah.
there, you can see it. Okay. All right. Let's just try to. There we go. And we're back. Let's see if anybody else is here.
I'm gonna go on mute and off the camera while
What'd you say?
I said I'm gonna go on mute and off camera while you work on all of the setups.
Okay. I can do the same. Oh, here we go. I think we're getting there. We're getting there. Look at this. There's Meera. Hi. There's Wendy. I'm so excited.
No.
I'm really excited, you guys. Hi, Nayab. How are you?
Doing good. Look, I'm
Oh,
rocking.
yeah.
I'm rocking your shirt. See?
Thank you so much. I think we're streaming on Facebook, but I could be wrong. It's all a mystery to me.
It says live on Facebook.
Okay, I thought I was going to do YouTube, but I pushed a different button. Here we are. Hey, Lakeisha, she was here early. She's like, I do this professionally. I'll be back. Oh, there she is. Hi. How are you all?
I should have gotten my free DC t-shirt and put it on after I finished my other panel.
Yes, yes.
I don't even know where it is right now. It might be downstairs in the dirty laundry. Otherwise, I would go find it and put it on real quick.
I'm so glad you still have it. Hey! It's the white one. So you got the real one, not the one I did myself with the papers. Hi, Faye.
Hi, Deb. Hi, everyone.
Oh, this is so exciting. I'm very excited. Barbara and Tara couldn't be with us, so I think we have everybody now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I wanted to bring everyone together to have a little chat about 3 different projects that span over the years. Because it's been a time of retrospective for me, like really looking at these works. And I feel like these 3 works are pieces that I felt really passionate about staging because it felt like staging unheard voices, and it felt really important. So we'll start with, well, should you introduce yourself? Let's slate. How about you guys introduce yourselves? Do you mind? We'll start with you, Lakeisha.
Okay, so my name is Lakeisha Raquel Harrison. That is the name I use for stage, but it is actually also my real name. And I am an actor, among other things, but I have known Deb for now, it's got to be more than 20 years. I'm scared to even start trying to count. And
Anastasia trials, right?
It was before that.
Yeah,
it was before that, because Tiny Madmen was before that.
That's right.
And in order to do Tiny Madmen, I had to know you before that.
That's right.
So I don't quite know when it all started, but I am a friend of Venus and a supporter of Venus, in addition to having the privilege of performing for and with Venus over the course of several years. And so it's a pleasure to have been a part of, and hopefully to continue to be a part of, an effort to bring to the forefront women's voices, not just from the page, but also in terms of actors and opportunities as artists to perform work by women. And there aren't a whole lot of folks out there doing this around the world in general, but especially here in the US and in the nation's capital specifically.
Cool. Thanks, Lakeisha. Thanks for all that you've done. And Meera, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Meera, and my full name, that's the stage name I go by, or it's Meera Narasimham. And I have been in the performing arts, primarily acting for, I'll date myself, 4 decades plus. And yeah, I've been doing it always as a fun gig. If it paid my bills, that would be full time, but I still have hope I will do that one day. I do other stuff too. And I used to repeat the story many, many times 4 years ago, but I'll say it one more time. My stage niece from the play, Nayab Hussain, thanks to her, it was an accidental stumbling of myself onto the stage of Soft Revolution, staged by Venus and under Deborah's direction. And oh boy, it is something, a blessing that I will never, ever forget in my whole life. Thank you, Nayab, for that. And if you need a backstory, in short, she was the aunt looking for a niece and approached me. She had asked a whole bunch of people, then she asked me if I knew anyone, and I asked around, and nobody was willing to commit the time requirement. So I just tongue-in-cheek suggested to Nayab, hey, how about you be the niece and I the aunt? And that's it, forgot all about it. A week later, I get a message from Nayab saying, maybe that's gonna work out. And then of course, Deborah contacted, and the rest is history. And it's a wonderful history to relive again and again. And there's more to talk, but I will when I get a chance, because these are some things we are going to touch upon in the discussion Deborah wants us to do. But thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Nayab. It's so good to see you again, and I hope we'll all work together again.
Yes. How about you, Wendy?
I'm Wendy Nogales. What am I? Just me. Sometimes this made me reflect a lot on how wild it's been. A Little Rebellion Now was the first play that I did with you, and I wanted to work with Venus so bad that like it was that actor's nightmare where every time I was in the room with you, I was just like, I can't act. Like I literally, like I would audition for you and I would just like implode, and I'd be like, okay, well, I guess I'm never gonna work for Venus. I'll just go see the shows. They're really good. And then I get this call from my friend who's like, I can't do this show. Can you do this show for me? And I was like, where, Venus? And I was like, oh my God, my brain literally just like exploded at the thought that like maybe, and I was like, no, I can't do this. Like I can't do this. And then you called and I was like, oh, if ever there was a call, just answer it. And I was like, yes. And so literally just thinking about this the past few days, I'm like, how different would my life have been if I'd had said no? It was hard, and it was like I was afraid, but like my God, like that experience, faith. I know we'll start talking about it, but like I can just literally can't imagine what, like, because Venus and A Little Rebellion Now were such an impactful part of my life that like I literally sometimes just my brain explodes at the thought of what would have happened if I had said no. So, but I didn't. So here I am, almost 16 years later.
It's incredible. It's incredible. How about you, Nayab?
Hello, everyone. And my aunt, I always refer to Meera as aunt now. We're aunt and niece. And people are like, are you guys really? Sure. I'm Nayab Hussain. I worked first with Deb. It was the first time ever on the stage. She gave me opportunity back on Play Nice. I don't know. So what? 2010? And Yeah, and I've continued to either come to the show, support Deb. I think it's such a great mission to, get out there, and it was right down the street from where my parents lived, so that was convenient. In terms of there's a theater here and it does women's work, so I'm an actor and I'm also a pharmacist. So this entire pandemic, I haven't really slowed down as much with the acting, but the health world has really kind of engulfed me. So luckily it's starting to kind of mellow down now. Hopefully with the vaccines around the corner, maybe we'll get a little bit of a break. But I was the niece in Soft Revolution, which I was like, oh, I can play a 20-year-old. Thanks, Deb. So that was cool. But that play, of course, when we produced it, everything that was going on. But the most important thing for me was that this play was the first time ever my parents actually came to see me. They have never come because they just, it's a cultural thing, but this was something they could relate with. And this is the first time they've ever come to see me perform. So that, will always stay with me with this play.
So beautiful.
Yeah. I think one of them did fall asleep though, but I apologize.
Parents.
They did enjoy it.
Miss Faith, are you at school?
Yes, I am. So I masked up. We're back. The kids aren't. So sometimes, and they're working on stuff. Right now, it's kind of quiet, but I'm expecting them to come back in at any time. Hello, everyone. Hi, Wendy. It's great to see you. Deb, it's always great to see you. My first show with Venus Theater was A Little Rebellion Now. And then shortly after that, there was Jane and the Underground Abortion.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So long ago. And I met Deb through League's auditions. I was just kind of out there. I was a drama teacher in Alexandria and got the itch to kind of do some work. And so I went to the Leagues and Deb called me. And this is how I found out about this gem called Venus Theater, setting flight to the voices of women. And I've just been in love with it ever since. I fell out of touch because I moved out of the area. I've had a plethora of life situations that came up, and dealt with that. But as soon as I moved back to Maryland, this is where I'm from. I'm from the area. And so found out that Venus Theater had moved actually to Laurel. I said, well, I'm definitely going to support. I don't know what I can do about auditioning, but I'm definitely going to some shows and to, support my Deb. Because again, very unique work that she's doing. I don't know of any other theater company that is specifically set to giving that support to women artists, writers, actresses, etc. So I'm forever in support of Venus Theater. I am a drama teacher still. I'm in Prince George's County. This whole thing has been very interesting, this whole virtual performance, because, this is not how we learned it. This is not what we were trained in. This is not, so we had to figure it out. But I'm just very happy to be here, very happy to see people I haven't seen in a while. A Little Rebellion Now, I can't, if I had known 15 years ago what that would look like, having done that show today, as I watch the news faithfully. And of course, now there's this talk about the statehood of DC and finally trying to make that happen after all this time. I can't help but think about that play, and having grown up here and having a very good understanding of taxation without representation, for me to be a part of that was clearly a gem of an experience. So hello, everyone.
Hello, Faith. And I know your students are going to come back in any minute, so we'll jump in. We'll start with A Little Rebellion Now, since I wrote down the year. What year was that? I have to look it up.
2005. Yes, Wendy. Yes.
16 years ago. And about a couple years ago, I looked up and saw Faith walking down the sidewalk on C Street, and I was like, what? She's back. I cried. I was like, I can't. Everyone still exists, because you work on one play at a time. It's easy to compartmentalize. It was like, whoa, it was amazing. Each of these productions, as a producer, had their huge challenges. And A Little Rebellion Now, the street exploded. I don't know if you guys remember that. Yeah. So we get the call, like, there's good news and bad news. The good news is no one's been hurt. The bad news is there's been an explosion. And I had to call all of the actors and say, I'm not making this up. We have no electricity. And all of you decided to perform in the dark. And I remember we sang We Shall Overcome, you know, on the stage, and only the lights in the house came on. Do you remember that?
Yes.
We had no other electricity in the building. It's like, oh. So I just want to like hear from you, and Faith, you've touched on it, what it meant to you personally, professionally, artistically. Also, any feedback that you got from people. For me, Lorraine contacted me because they shut down DC theater scene. And she was like, I was going back over the reviews, and did you have any idea how relevant that play was? And I said, yeah, that's why I produced it. Of course I did. Why didn't you? So no, I didn't say that. So both of you, Wendy, Faith, and I know Lakeisha, you saw this show too. So Lakeisha still has a t-shirt, which is very exciting. The free DC t-shirt. So if any of you want to jump in and just kind of shout about the show, I want to hear your experience. Also, any impact that you heard about, you know, from friends and things. A lot of times as a director and producer, I don't get much feedback at all. So yeah. Any of you jump in.
It's interesting because as I was reflecting on this last night, I just started laughing to myself, because when I think about what people's reactions to this show was, it was exactly the reaction that I had after every single show I see at Venus Theater. I feel like they left the theater and they were like, damn. And like, they wanted to talk to me about it. They were like, damn. And I just started laughing hysterically, because when I was like thinking about what was their reaction, and then I just laughed because every show, it doesn't matter like what genre show it is, I leave the theater going, damn, because I'm thinking about something, do you know? And I feel like because my brain and my face are so closely connected, like in order for my face to not do what my brain is telling it to do, I have to tell it to not do that. So like sometimes I don't care. And so I feel like every time I leave a show at Venus and Deb sees me, she's like, are you okay? It's because my brain is going, damn. And so like when I think about what my friends' reactions were, every single one of them left wanting to process what had just happened. And so we would go, and every single group that would come see it would go, and we would just have these discussions, and it was so awesome. And then to reflect on my 16 years with you since that, like I literally have the same reaction every single time, I thought was pretty special to make that connection. But also personally for me, I feel like they were super moved that they saw me doing work that I'd always said I wanted to do. Like, so they were like, you did it. Like, they were just so proud of me, because they were like, this is what you've worked so hard. Every obstacle that was put in front of you was because you wanted to do work like this. You wanted to tell stories this dynamic. You wanted lights, like that's what was so special, is because like this massive world that would have like just made people quake in their boots before they would ever produce a show like this, just logistically, with the number of actors that we had, the scene changes, the like magnitude of like everything. Like I just don't know anyone else who would like willingly take this on in a space that wasn't theirs, because it was that warehouse. Mm-hmm. So like you created all of this in a space that like you had a finite amount of time in. And so like they just knew that is exactly the kind of theater that I wanted to make. So like it was like reflecting back on Rebellion was such a pleasure. And I want to say thank you, Deb, for giving us this opportunity. I could literally talk about it for the entire time.
Fantastic.
So thank you. And in case Faith has to leave, I want to tell you, Faith, that like it was 16 years ago, I was still a relatively young artist, and witnessing you was like one of the most impactful moments of my life in so many ways, because like you're so honest, and like I just because when I came on late, I had to watch the show a million times because like I had to get the feeling of like, I did not want to mess this up for you guys because like this show was so gorgeous. It was so amazing. So like I watched every single show I possibly could before I had to go and the audience came in, and I would just marvel at you and Kenny. I just loved Kenny so much. So like artistically, I'm so thankful that you're here, and Deb has given me the opportunity to say that artistically your impact was just beyond, but also personally as like an artist who was trying to figure out who I wanted to be backstage as much as who I wanted to be on stage, as an artist witnessing your just like you're just foundationally such a good human, and there's no difference between who you are in any space you inhabit. So like so thankful, like I said, on so many levels for Rebellion, but one of those levels is that like I was able to be in a space with you, Faith, and learn from you, and I'm just forever thankful to Deb, and I'm so happy that I said yes. So yeah, that's it.
I know you said, what if you hadn't said yes? Where would you be? I'm like, where would I be if Wendy hadn't said yes?
Right.
They're like, this has to be a Latina. Like I can't just like put a wig on a white girl. Like this has to you can't. Like who, like, and Wendy's like, I'll do it. And I was like, yeah, because I had an actor and she's like, gotta go. And I was like, and everyone was so booked, you know? And I can't believe we found you, Wendy, and the way that you just swept in. Like, I don't think you had much time at all. I think you had like a weekend and then you were on, and the rest of us had a 4-week process.
Right.
You're amazing. You're amazing. You saved us.
You are, Wendy. Yes.
Terrified.
You're brilliant.
Terrified.
How about you, Faith? Anything you want to add?
Yes. First, I have to, I know I've done this before, but I have to thank you again for that opportunity and for trusting me with the role of Quandolyn Smith. And, you know, artistically, she's someone that I am not, but she's someone that I know, you know, and grew up with here. And so, powerful role, powerful play, but with the energy of everyone, and that started with your direction. It's just kind of like let it flow and let it happen, and that's exactly what we got. Deb's an awesome director, as you all know, and so you know when she sets the tone for what it's going to be, and to bring that out of you, and the exercises that we did as in warm up to get there mentally. I've carried that with me, and those are techniques that I actually use in my class. Wow. You know, the whole close your eyes and take yourself there, and like we literally levitate in a sense, and then get there. You know, and that's something that I learned from you, because as artists, we're always learning, and we're always growing. So, and you know, and the friends that I had that came to see the show absolutely loved it. And it's hard to get them out of the house to come and see a show, you know, because everybody's into the movies and the special effects and everything. But they were intrigued by the title and then the premise of the show, and being natives of the area. You know, I think that was so impactful. And anybody else who, even people I didn't know who came to see the show, you can't help but connect with that. And I think that's a part of what made it so powerful. To audiences that came to see it, because they're talking about things that are happening in your city, you know, things that you are fighting for and that you're passionate about. And like Wendy said, it just makes you think. And as a writer, as a director, that's what you want most out of your audience, is to make them think about something, make them feel something. Otherwise, what are we doing? And so, you know, kudos, and more kudos, forever kudos. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to add to what Wendy said.
Then we'll segue with Lakeisha, because you saw A Little Rebellion now, and you were in so many projects, as you've said. But and then we can talk about Witches. Tara had a West Coast meeting, and the times got flipped, so you're on your own with Witches, I think, Lakeisha, if you're okay with that.
Yes. So yeah, it's Venus is a trip. And I mean that literally and figuratively. It's a trip in that it's just audacious, but it's also a trip in that each show is a trip. Like it's a trip somewhere. It's a journey. It's a journey in the process of getting there, but it's also a trip to someplace. And sorry, but my neighbor's getting their lawn done right now, so you may hear lawnmowers and leaf blowers and all of that. But I'm gonna put in my headset and see and see if that helps.
Yeah.
Okay. And with the sound a little bit more focused, hopefully. So A Little Rebellion Now, it's I think one of the things about that show that was a marvel to me was the staging and use of the space and all of the different levels, because you had the upper level, then you had the poles, then you had the forefront open floor, and then you had the space under the platforms, and and then just all of these people just kind of everywhere. And how the use of that space, because warehouse is a pretty big space, but how the use of that space really did kind of create these different ideas of where people were in the city, you know, and in the street. And it just was, it was like people were everywhere all at the same time, but it was clearly organized chaos. And that is very difficult to pull off in a production without it just going rogue. You know what I mean? And just completely losing all focus. And it was, I will never forget that, the staging of all of that. And I don't know how you managed all of those different bodies all over that stage in all of these different levels, and made it coherent and come alive. But I do remember that production, you know, over the years, I see so many shows, and I will readily admit that I don't remember every show I see. Even at Venus, it's just like there are snatches and pieces, but I don't remember it all. But with that one, I remember how timely and relevant it was in terms of the idea of DC statehood and fighting for respect and acknowledgement for the community, especially this whole idea of gentrification, because at that particular time, you know, to a large degree, DC has now been gentrified, but at that time it wasn't. And so this idea of bringing gentrification smack into the middle of an area that was going through the gentrification by staging it at the Warehouse Theater of all places. You have this stage full of women talking about, we're going to burn it all down and we're taking it over. We're not going anywhere, was just remarkable. And so, yeah, I just loved it. And I think I appreciate what Wendy said about people's reaction to just coming out of shows with Venus and just going, damn. Because Wendy, the reaction you just mentioned is often the reaction I have gotten from people as well, even if they don't say that word, but just the idea, I need to process. I need to talk about this with you. I've never done a show anywhere else, no matter what it was. I take that back. One show in college about apartheid South Africa, but otherwise, I've never done a show where people come out of it and say, okay, can we talk? But the shows at Venus that happened, and Witches Vanish was one of the most talkative or talk-inspired shows I've done ever. Let me say this, not one of, it was the most talk-inspired show I've ever done, where afterwards people were like, okay, I just need to talk.
one way or another, because I needed to understand. I mean, some of it had to do with the convention of the way the play was written, because it was so many different vignettes, so many different theatrical styles, and much of it was farcical, farce, avant-garde, you know, and forms that are not always readily accessible for the average person to process and understand, period. But then on top of that, it was a trip.
I have two interjections for you. First, on A Little Rebellion Now, our technical director was Kat. She was this 90-pound like dynamo, and she welded all the steel in that show.
Wow.
And I just the other week gave away the steps. We call them the Prince stairs from A Little Rebellion Now, because we've used them in so many different other shows. But I'm like, and men will be like, these are heavy. I'm like, a 90-pound woman welded those like that. So that's where the rebellion steps went. And then I called Lakeisha and I was like, okay, I'm going to put you behind the apparatus. And Lakeisha was like, what's the apparatus? And I'm like, well, I'm going to attach poles to a wall with fabric and just smash you behind it. And Lakeisha's like, what kind of fabric? It's like, it'll be good. Do you remember that, Lakeisha?
Yes, I do. I do. I can honestly say that no one has ever put me behind a sheet against the wall and told me to act without any ability to see or be seen, right? But I think that's one of the things I love about your creativity and your mind, is that you can take what seems like an impossible script from a playwright and re-envision it to make it workable without losing the intention behind what the artist was trying to convey in writing the scene or in writing the story. And I think, you know, that as I've said to Deb, was the most fun part of the show at some point. Now, it's kind of macabre because I was playing a dead teenage girl whose body was decomposing in the process, but
we'll put you behind Lycra and you can stretch through it. Like,
yeah. And it was fun. And, you know, I kind of, in this show, I began to get the appeal of playing in horror, because it's actually fun to terrify people. Because for us, it's not real, but it's fun making it as real as possible for the audience. But I can say that just Witches Vanish, professionally and artistically, I will say is the most impactful show that I have ever done. And the reason for that is twofold. One, and since I've done multiple shows with you, your approach with Witches Vanish was a little different from how you approach other ones. Because with Witches Vanish, you turned the entire directing and staging process into a collaborative process. The whole thing. It was like we became a collective. You had your clear director's vision. You had your clear ideas about where you wanted things to go. But we didn't just go from table talk to you staging us. We went from table talk, and table talk just stayed the whole time. And you gave us the room to just play and just move around the space and create the space. And as the space was being built, you talked to us about the space and what it meant. And then we gave you feedback about that too. And so the whole time, it was not just you informing us about what it is you wanted from us. It was us working together to figure this out and make it come alive. And that's rare, extremely rare in directors, to let actors have that much freedom. But it also really kind of made it possible for us to own the characters and the story in a way that was absolutely necessary for conveying it, because it was so complicated and because it was so difficult, such difficult content for people to take in and process and see. But because we were vested in it, because you allowed us to help inform it, it just made such a big difference. And one example is the teenage cousins in the Spanish Inquisition. And when we got that up on our feet and we were beginning to stage it, you told us kind of like generally where you wanted to be, but then I just started randomly pacing and I started doing this thing, and I just started doing it, and you just never said anything, and that just became what we did. And then eventually you said, I like it, and then we just kept going. And throughout the production, the vast majority of what we did was that way, and your ability to just trust us and let us play. Because that's what we do, right? These are plays, and you let us play, and you trusted us to be able to make it come alive. And so for me, I think that was one of the most impactful things, because we were dealing with very sensitive content, and we were dealing with real women and girls, which is also very hard, because when you're dealing with someone real, you're really sensitive to trying to do justice and honor to who they are, who they were in their life, because you can't just play around with someone's true I guess identity, etc., as to who they are. And you've got to bring that spirit to it that makes it real and does them honor and does them justice. And so that's what Witches Vanish was like for me. Definitely the most impactful professionally and artistically piece I have ever done. Not to mention the fact that most characters I have ever played within an hour and a half time period, with the most scene changes and costume changes I've ever had.
You were terrifying. That last monologue, you terrified me every single night. It's just, you were so terrifying. And I think Witches was very challenging. Claudia was like, Deb, I have a script that's not producible. And I said, I'm going to go see the reading in New York. And I went up to New York and I watched the stage reading there. And I knew like almost all the playwrights in the room, and I had produced almost all of them. I was like, hi. And then I was like, I'm going to do it. And I don't know how. And so it really was like, how am I going to do this? But we spoke, I think, the name of 84 different women who had vanished. And that was sort of in between the vignettes. And your voices were so beautiful, and I wanted to honor that. We had read that play at the Kennedy Center the year before, Amy and Anne Freistad and I. And I played a conga, and Amy played flute, and Anne read the voices. And I just remember how exhausted I was being one of the players, and how I just collapsed. But at the Kennedy Center, page to stage, they were on their feet clapping for this reading that we had just done. And I was like, this script just has a lot of power. But we need diversity. Like, we need to capture how many different voices here. And I think the haunting thing, so many haunting things about that play, really. But it was that it had been going on since the 80s. And when we went into tech, 3 of the men from Juarez, it started with girls going missing in Juarez. And 3 of the men had been arrested during our tech week. After decades of not knowing who they were. And we were just going into tech, and it was just, you just feel the energy of like, yeah, we got you. We're coming to get you. Like, I don't know. It's like,
and that wasn't the only one, because remember that there was a woman whose name was in the list of those who had gone missing in Spain. I don't know if those of you who may have been paying attention, there was an American hiker in Spain who had gone missing, and nobody could find her. Nobody knew what happened to her. And during our play, the person who murdered her came. I don't remember if he turned himself in or if the police found him. And then he led them to her body while we were doing that production.
Yeah.
And so and when we were doing the table talk, and I've said this multiple times to people, is that I was very clear. I said, everybody, I said, this is spirit work. This is not a play.
Yeah.
This is, we're not doing a show. This is spirit work. We are, and I, the name of the play is literal and figural, because trust and believe, if we're saying the names of 80 some odd women who have been murdered or disappeared, they are going to show up, because this is conjuring.
Yeah.
They're going to come. And I said, okay, and if you're afraid of that, then we need to process that and work through it. I said, but we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be, because that's the impact of this work. And so for that to actually happen, for justice to actually come to bear for at least this one specific woman and her perpetrator, and then these 3 perpetrators who were part of a larger group that was the inspiration for the play as a whole, to actually be arrested and go to trial when we're in the midst of this production. It was just like, that just made it all worth it. And it was absolutely exhausting. Absolutely. Every day. And we all got sick. And I think Deb said the play tried to kill us.
It did. And I mean, this is weird, but you know, Trisha came to that play. Trisha McCauley was at, which is Vanish, and she came up to me in the lobby after and said, can we go someplace? And we went to Oliver's up on Main Street, and we just danced all night and we laughed so hard. And then she was disappeared. You know, she was raped and murdered. And people would say, well, now you can do a play about it. And a part of me, like in the midst of PTSD, was just like, that's what I did. Like I did a play about it. It didn't, you know, so that it was still going on, you know? So for me right now, it's really good to revisit the fact that no, some really powerful things were coming out of it, you know, because right now when I look back, I think of Trisha having gone to see it. So thank you so much for bringing all that back. That was a challenge. I've forbidden Claudia from using more than 7 props in any other script to me.
Well, I can also say thank you, because it's the first play that my name has been printed in. Because I've never
published.
Right, because it was published. And so I've never had the honor of being an actor whose name is printed in a printed play as the originating actor for the role in the first professional production. And, you know, as someone who is a professional actor but doesn't make my living that way, that's very, very rare, because even among professional actors who make their full-time living that way, people can go their whole career and never have that happen. And so, you know, it's just such a treasure. And for all plays, for it to be that one, it just means a lot.
Yeah, Carnegie Mellon Press too. So good press. And I would estimate that about 30% of the plays we premiere go on to publication. So I think that's a good thing. Yes, ma'am.
And I just want to highlight one of the most Debbieist / Venusiest things that will ever come is that you were like, a playwright came to me and said, this is unproducible. And I was like, let's do it. So I just like, that to me is like the encapsulation of every Debbish, Venus-ish thing in my brain, is that like, first and foremost, if you want to tell that story, that is what is going to happen. Like, you know, so that a player was like unproducible, you're like, let's do it. It's just so Venus and Deb to me that like, I just wanted to highlight that. And sorry, keep going.
I'm taking notes. Okay, so then we move on to Soft Revolution. So which is Vanish, I think it was 2015, right? And then we did Soft Revolution at the end of 2016. Right, so these were back to back, and Soft Revolution, I think, as Meera already said, like it was really hard to cast. Nayab was on board. Thank you, Nayab, for being so on board. And it was like, I need one more woman, and we were just scratching our heads. And so we started rehearsals a week late. Meera came in, we finally had her, and then Trump was elected, and we went from like. I went from asking like, here's the theatrical device of a hijab, right? Like, it's just a fabric. It's a piece of fabric. And these women are torn over one piece of fabric. Like, how dramatic could that be? You know, and I know Alana is such a great playwright, and it was so powerful, but it's like, it's really just a piece of fabric. And then when Trump was elected, there were these tweets coming out about women in Walmart wanting to set Muslim women on fire that were wearing, and I have to say, as someone who's produced and directed, you know, more than 70 productions. In one, domestic abuse was a theme, and I had a woman that ended up being pummeled by her spouse on tech weekend and had to drop out of the show because she was beaten so badly, and I had to worry about that and how to protect my cast. But even including that, I don't know if I've ever been more worried about my actors, to the point where I would just cry at night, and how do I protect you, and how do we still do this show, and who's going to show up. And so we lost another week, right? So we really only rehearsed that show for 2 weeks, and then it opened, and then you were on the cover of the style section of Washington Post. It's like, this isn't possible. How did this just happen? So I turn it over to Nayab and Meera to talk about that project.
Go, Nayab.
Okay. So yeah, I was excited when I heard about this show, and I was like, I got to be a part of it somehow, Deb. And she's like, you want to be an aunt? I'm like, fine. But then, you know, the difficult thing, as she was saying, was there aren't a lot of South Asian or of that area actresses, you know, in, you know, the DMV. And that's mostly because I feel like sometimes our stories aren't really out there about who we are as people. So a lot of us don't go into the arts because of that. So I knew a couple people, but they were just not available. And then I was talking to Meera about it. And like we were saying, she was just like, well, what if I became the aunt and you were the niece? And I'm like, Deb's not going to believe me as a 20-year-old. And at that point, I'm like, wait, it's a play. We can make it happen. And I guess, yeah, and it did happen. And it just, when you have all these plays about who people are and what they've been through, when you see something that is so true to you, you're like, it's so much more easier to tell that story. For me personally, you know, after 9/11 was the same thing, you know, for us. We, you know, Muslims were targeted. A lot of my friends actually took the hijab off because they were afraid of, you know, being harassed, and a lot of them were. So I know the struggle. Being a Muslim woman who doesn't cover her head, this is a personal choice that, you know, that I've made, that I too still struggle with, you know, inside. How much that one fabric, as Deb is saying, can have so much significance. And it did. And it, you know, like I said, this play brought my parents out, and they didn't come to see me ever. They're like, why are you doing this? This is not what you do. This is not what we do in the culture. You know, we don't do the arts. But who else is going to tell the story if we're not doing the arts? And a lot of my friends came out, and they were like, wow. And Meera cooked every day. That was not takeout. She cooked the food every day.
She came 2 hours early because it was Muslim, it was from Australia, and it was Pakistani. And I'm like, and we're in Laurel. Like, how do I convey? And I'm like, food. Everybody knows food. So it's like Meera would just start cooking in the back, and the whole room would fill with that smell.
As the play went on,
and then I had a crock pot. She'd add ingredients, and then after the show, we'd take the crock pot to the lobby, and we had bowls, and we just serve it to the audience, and we just talk and eat. It was amazing.
Yeah, everyday fresh food during our, you know, production. And I mean, it was a 2-person play, so it was a lot, you know, and it was very heavy dialogue too. And just with everything going on with the election, and it was like the world set the stage for this play to come on the stage at Venus at that time.
Yeah. But I would add to that. Personally, for me, Venus was the safest space to be, because the dark days were just beginning. We had just gone into rehearsal, and you know who got elected. And I literally went in the morning for a week. No rehearsal. I went to Great Falls and spent my time there because I couldn't fathom. And, you know, and rightfully, we all were so scared. But at the end of 4 years, we are scarred too, because we anticipated what was going to happen. And, you know, the darkness in so many people's hearts were given a face. But in a way, we got to see the truth and not pretenses. And, you know, we were being, I think, delusional, thinking the world is hunky-dory. But no, it all came out, and we saw. So that morning of that 1 week, for me, was the safest space to be was Venus. And that's what you always provide, safe space. And I think, and that just set the tone for the whole play, because it was written a little, I think a few years before you staged it, but it became so contemporary in 2016, November, December America, when someone got elected. I don't even want to take the name, but you all know who.
The former guy.
So it was like intense. It was initially when I first read the script, when after Nayab pitched me to Deb, and Deb said, let's go. We just met once and she's like, okay, this is it. We're doing it. I went for a reading and there was no audition, nothing, but it just all fell into place. But then initially my hesitation was, it's like two talking heads. How is it going to work to keep the audience engrossed? Because this is an immigrant story, a POC or a person of color, and how many people are going to relate to it and stuff like that. But it all fell into place. It was very contemporaneous for what was going on outside in the world, outside of Venus. And so many people showed up. I mean, we would have extra chairs put in aisles and stuff, and they all related to it. So
it was a relationship. I mean, that transcends any culture, the relationship between these two women that anyone can relate to, you know, how one feels so strongly about something and the other one feels so strongly about something and they're headbutting. And for these two ladies, it was the hijab that was doing it. And then the end was, for me, the end was like unexpected, you know, what happened. But it hit me because that's kind of what happens in families. Like if you choose to do something, especially in South Asian culture, if you choose to do something that the majority don't like, or the, you know, your elders don't like, they'll just up and just be like, well, forget you then. You know, you fend on your own.
In the end, they separate. It doesn't have a happy ending. The aunt chooses to not know the niece anymore because it's too painful. And I think, Meera, you had that beautiful monologue about what happened to you on that bus with that hijab.
Oh, that's right. Because
the big one.
Yeah, and I will never forget what you gave to me in that monologue. I mean, even in my dream today, wake me up, I'll remember, because I was internalizing it so much. It was so intense, of this Afghani woman escaping the Taliban and the war-torn Afghanistan to get out in a covered bus with no oxygen, and, you know, people stuffed in like cattle. And Deb kept telling me, because I thought I was suffocating and dying, and she kept telling me, breathe, breathe. And that word is stuck in my brain now. Anything I do, any reading, any role, but that guidance that you gave me to not kill myself doing that, you know, even when you internalize the role, but to breathe and let the audience feel it. And from where I started to where you brought it or made me bring it to was just a complete, 180-degree change. And that impacted pretty much everyone who came. And so, you know, professionally and artistically, I mean, personally, like I said, Venus was the safest space to be in. Professionally, artistically, the whole play, a lot of people who came related to it and they loved it. And the reviewers said, I've never seen so many persons of color in the theater ever, surrounded, you know, with non-white audience.
Amazing. It was so amazing. We had to pull the piano bench in. We had 50 people in that room. I mean, I wasn't going to turn anybody away. I'm like, if you came, you're going to get in. Don't worry. It's like, stand against the wall. Like, they were packed in there.
Yeah, I think I remember saying like, oh, there's still more people coming. We have to hold. I'm like, okay.
I know it somewhere.
Where are they going to go? Are they going to be on stage with me cooking?
Probably. I'm not turning anyone away. You can forget about that.
But one thing that's among the audience feedback, a lot of people, they just loved it. They related to it. And the immigrant population related in their own way, because the older generation, first generation immigrants came and they tried to imbibe and, you know, kind of meld with the society so they don't stand out. That's what the aunt was.
Right.
And then the new generation gets exposed to what they left behind.
Right.
And then they are learning and all the stuff and connecting to it. So many of my friends who came and their kids who came, the kids related to Nayab's characters totally, because that's where they wanted to make the choice. They wanted to be given the freedom to choose what the parents left behind, or, you know, imbibe what they were born into as Americans. And then the parents had this fight, like Deanne did, that I left it all behind and you can't take it up now. the hijab and everything. And one of the friends who came was a Muslim friend. And she said, one of the reviewers said, and she said that was nailing it, because the reviewer said, my character brought a stiffness to some of the aspects of what she was playing. And she said, that's exactly how I feel, because as a Muslim, I left behind the hijab and the burqa, the full covering. Mm-hmm. And even though I'm walking around, like in my tees and jeans, but in my heart, I don't feel right, because I was covered up and now I'm feeling exposed. And so my friends call me stiff. That's what she told me. Mm-hmm. And I never thought of it that way, that even the simplest thing that, you change your outer clothing, but what is inside, sometimes it takes a long time to change. But in this character, the aunt had changed, and she could not accept the niece going back to everything she left behind and fought against. And I think that was the conflict, and was beautifully written and beautifully directed.
Thank you.
So everybody just left there, I think, changed, because they wouldn't leave the space.
No, we were in the lobby eating like it
forever.
Was
like 2 hours after the show, people would hang out and talk and talk. Didn't want to go. And I think that's how it impacted. Like Wendy said, it's a wow factor that probably every production has, but this was also touched somewhere deep within everyone about family relationships. It was just an aunt and a niece, but it could be mother, daughter, be uncle and nephew, or it could be siblings. That's what was beautiful.
I think
the idea of the soft revolution, Nayab, I was wondering, can you add on to whatever you want to say about this concept in the younger generation to embrace the culture so that they can change it from within? I feel like that's what the hijab was representing for you. I mean, if you want to go back that far, but do you have any insight on that? Any thoughts?
I mean, it's really different. Like I see my sister's generation now, because I mean, I was born in Pakistan, but I came here, but when I was really young, so I kind of been stuck in both worlds. So I'm trying to find the balance. But like my siblings and the younger ones who are just been here, they haven't even been back, and they're seeing all these things from like their parents where they grew up, and they're reading. And I think they kind of, some of them wonder, like, why did they leave it if that's, what's been done? But they don't understand, like, yes, they went through wars. They went through, harassment. They went through all of this. That's why they came here, to escape it. A lot of my Iranian friends, they go through that with the revolution that happened in the 70s. A lot of their parents came here. But then that generation that's growing up now, they didn't live through it. So when you don't live through it, you don't understand it, but you're just like, but that's what we should be doing. But it's going to affect you different if you lived through like harassment. Like, growing up, I went through the first Gulf War. My last name was Hussain. Let's just say junior high was very interesting from then on. Right. I was literally embarrassed to say how to, no, that's it's not pronounced Hussain, it's pronounced something else. Or I would just say my first name, no one would get it. And now it's just like, oh, whatever, like, oh, Barack's middle name is Hussain. That's what it's, oh, it's cool to have that. But I still remember, and I keep thinking, like, when I got married, should I take my husband's name? It's different. It's not Hussain. But it's a part of me, and I have to learn to just not associate that with something being bad. Because that's like kind of what the aunt was doing. The hijab reminded her of something so bad. But the niece was like, no, but this is what we do. So why are you against it?
And it keeps us safe as women. It keeps us safe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I was also going to say that at the end of every production, I always thought we did such a bad job because people just sat there. And I'm like, why isn't anyone applauding? But they were so just like, I think the end just touches you in such a way that you're like, I'm just going to sit here and think about it for a little bit. But I honestly thought that. I'm like, then half the time we'd be like, should we go out? Like, do they know the play's done? But I think it really, hit people in such a way.
Yeah.
People still talk about it. Even now they talk about it. When are you going to do another one like that? When is Venus going to do it? Like, we are waiting.
We're waiting. I'd love to do that. I think each one of these scripts packed a punch, you know what I mean? They were very powerful in terms of all women, not just, I felt, I don't know, they just resonated in my soul when I read them, and I don't have the words to thank all of you for bringing them to life.
Thank you for bringing them to us so we could.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was amazing. It was
Indeed. Opportunities to do work like this is not common across the theater world, period. Nationally, internationally, I've seen some shows out of the country and things like that, and they're impactful too. So I'm not saying that they don't happen other places, but they're rare. And so thank you, because this is the type of work that actors live for, because it stretches us and it gives us the ability to use the full range of our skills and the full range of our just abilities. And so often we get typecast, put in a box, etc., as opposed to given the freedom to just go.
Yeah.
And that's what these shows do.
And just be yourself.
And your ability to pick these scripts that even the playwright says nobody's going to do is uncanny. How you pick it, and it's just amazing. And it's like, of women, for women, by the woman, Deborah. So it's fantastic. And thank you for this opportunity.
No problem. We just have like 2 more minutes, and so I just I think it's mutual, it's just a mutual love fest here. I can't believe any one of those shows landed. It was unlikely in every case. And they all, because of your sheer will and commitment and talent and vision, you're the ones who decided they would live. So thank you. And this is the longest I've gone without producing a reading scripts in about 30 years. So it's been an interesting time for me. And right now I'm redefining safe space and what that means. And I think it means the air that we breathe. It means surfaces that we touch. So right now we're just scrubbing the theater. We're getting rid of all the Baltimore grunge aesthetic. We're going to come in with a sterile aesthetic. If you can imagine that, it's a good imagining. So we'll see what happens. I'm fighting for an HVAC system that's state of the art. So like my idea is like your lungs will be cleaner when you leave and when you arrive. And then, I dream of like moving a bathroom into the lobby, but that means breaking up concrete and getting permits. So I've learned to write grants, and I'm working. I'm still working to make it all happen, just in a totally different way. It's just a real treat to see each one of you and to hear your voices. You bring life to me. Thank you. You make it worth doing. Thank you. And
thank you.
It's 3:00, so enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Deb, thank you.
Love you.
Love you.